much, Christelle, for that warm welcome, and good afternoon to the panel members, but also to our alumni, as well as the faculty. It's always an honor to be invited to these events from USB. And it's always good to also note that Africa is well represented based on the list of countries that you've just listed. It is, of course, a very important occasion. And although Professor Mark Smith is in France, he is an Englishman who's going to be venturing and living in Africa for a few years. So we wish to welcome him, and we wish to introduce Mark to the faculty and alumni. I know that most of you would have read the announcement that was sent earlier, but today is an official opportunity for you to engage with Professor Mark Smith. So who's Professor Mark Smith? Mark, as he prefers to be called, comes with strong leadership skills, academic rigor, and believes in the value of research. He will be joining USB from Grenoble, and I said I'll only pronounce that one, and the rest, it's a tongue twister. And I know I'm South Sotho, and I'm supposed to be able to pronounce as many languages as possible, but I'm not going to risk it today. He brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and fresh perspective to USB. And he has strong belief in the value of research and focus on youth policy, integration in ethics across the world, gender, as well as labor market. He's published over 70 academic books and journals, and has led large-scale funded research projects for the European Commission in Global Foundation. He's an active member of the Responsible Research in Business and Management initiative led by the EFMD and AACSB. He's an expert advisor to various global organizations and foundations, and I'm sure he'll play a critical role in South Africa in advising some of the foundations, government, as well as organizations. He comes with triple accredited business school, and of course, he's joining a triple accredited business school, so that's great synergy there. So for me, the one thing that I would like to say is it's refreshing to know that USB has chosen a leader who is more in the human science field, as opposed to hardcore business, engineering, or science. And I think it's because USB understands that transformation and growth happens through people. And your leadership, Mark, with your specialty in human resources and societal, will bring value and will help grow not only just USB, but the alumni and the society at large. So welcome to South Africa and to USB, Mark.
Thank you, Becky. Very happy to be here.
Thank you, and we look forward to hearing you later. We look forward to hearing you later, and there will be an opportunity for the faculty and the alumni to engage with Mark. There is a chat box, so please, we encourage you to start capturing your questions if you've got any, and we'll also give you, which we will respond to when we get into the engagement session. And then we will also provide you with an opportunity where you can also ask questions by raising a hand during that time, where there would then be that opportunity for Mark to respond to your questions. In the meantime, I'm going to hand over to Christelle Cunier, who's going to just give us an update on the alumni program. Over to you, Christelle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Becky and Mark. I know we would like to have as much as possible time today for the engagement with Mark, so I'm going to be very brief. Maybe for our students in the room and for alumni who's not engaged so much before, brief background: the USB Alumni Association In its current format, was established in 1986. It started way before that. The association is, as a co-president, Professor Priya du Plessis, a chairperson, of course, the directors of USB and the CEO USB 8, and then all our chapter chairpersons with over 29,000 alumni. We focus on extending a global reach, have a lifelong engagement, provide access to business knowledge, and to give back to society. In short, just I want to mention the vision and the mission of the Alumni Association itself is to be the most desirable alumni association in Africa and to build a brand of the USB, including USB 8 and USB alumni. Who are the USB alumni? Of course, everybody, all the degrees of the USB, from the postgraduate diplomas to PhD. And then with USB 8, and this is quite a comprehensive number of alumni from 8, all their comprehensive courses, the EDP, SMDP, MDP, and the Africa Directors Program when they have that again. So that is about a 50-50 split at the moment in alumni. So you can see that 8 has got quite a number. Pre-lockdown, we will never forget our lovely and beautiful events and the networking opportunities we've had. This is just to remind us that the time will come again where we can rub shoulders and engage with industry leaders. The photos we have here is dear to my heart. That's in the Dubai group, it's the Namibia group, it is the Ghana group and Eastern Cape, for example. But we will get there again. Our strategic pillars, just in a snapshot there, we have the 4 strategic pillars where we focus on in the current strategy to connect, to engage, to grow, and to strengthen. And within that, we cover all our activities throughout the year and next year. A huge thank you, and this is, I think, what it's all about from my side today, is to thank our alumni for 2020. Thank you so much what you've done for us and to help us to quickly adapt to the new way of doing things, to switch over to digital, to switch over to webinars. We've had our EXCO meeting, annual general meeting in March. We've just agreed on a set way of going forward for the year, and we suddenly had to change all of that. We've done that, and I'm so proud of everyone, our chapter chairpersons, all the alumni who contributed. You've connected with us on the digital platform. You've engaged with us as event speakers, as guest lecturers in class. You've sponsored or mentored students. You've delivered a whole host of testimonials over 3 weeks of open days at the USB, and each of those slots was an alumnus. The feedback we got there was tremendous. You've helped to raise that conversion rate and to really bring the switch from a student, a prospective student that was still thinking about the course, to a really committed student, applicant. We strengthened, you helped us to strengthen the USB Alumni Association brand across Africa, in the UAE, in the UK, with events, our networks via contributions. You brought us the industry leaders. We've even had the new request from Canada to strengthen networks there. So we are very proud of you. Thank you very much for your contributions. Example just of some of our webinars this year, of course, when we did not have the opportunity to have in-person events in the 14 chapters, still to gain that ownership, to regain that for the chapters. We've had each of these webinars hosted by a chapter. So the chairpersons was the facilitators. Sometimes they put the entire thing together. They identified who they wanted as guest speakers for their region, topics that would speak to the people in their chapter. And we were very proud to host a very broad variety of chapters, all contributing to the thought leadership development of our alumni. At all these events, we invited corporates in the regions, chapters, and of course, our students were always invited to all the events. Just another snapshot of the events specifically, because having had the change to the digital events, this was a great focus for us in 2020. So we had 3 USB alumni masterclasses, the last one being for the mentors, a mentorship masterclass, and the other 2 happened in May and February this year. In February, we also had some face-to-face events, the MBA reunions, and a Western Cape event. In March, we had our Exco and a very special full day of a strategic workshop on the new USB strategy and aligning our alumni strategy to what was required in there. During April to November, we had 15 webinars across the 13 chapters. And as I said, with a new edition of Canada, these were all chapter hosted by a chapter, but facilitated, of course, still by the USB on Zoom. But we had amazing engagement on these webinars. From August to December, we had all our collaboratory events with external and internal partners, and that included ED, IFR, the EUDASA, and many others. So 39 in total. That includes the strategic workshop, plus the Exco would make it 40. So we're very proud of that number. Thank you for sharing your stories and your journeys, because the other channel that we could communicate with you this year was through our newsletters. We had 3 of our alumni newsletters, and across on the digital platform, we had 3 alumni digests, a bit smaller. But throughout these, we had a focus on women's stories throughout the year, amazing successful stories and journeys. In the middle, the picture at the bottom in the middle is one of our development finance alumni making a dent in the universe, and that is in Afghanistan, and he's doing amazing work in Afghanistan. So we're so proud to host your stories on our website, to share it on social media, and you make us proud through these. And we look forward to more exciting stories in 2021. Just before I finish, how alumni supports our students. This was also a highlight for us this year. During orientations of students, this year we didn't have the farewells, where we could usually bring a message of welcome to the new alumni. Also, USB Ed had its graduations in the past, with our chairpersons in Namibia and Botswana in South Africa delivering a presentation of welcome to our new alumni. This have a different format this year. We had the MBA student alumni dinners last week, which were very successful in the 5 centra. And then, of course, the mentorship program, where we also support our students, alumni mentors, and we work with careers on that. And then lastly, also through the Research Meets Industry, the in-week, which happened 2 weeks ago. Finally, from my side, Becky, I can just ask everyone to please register on our digital platform. This will open you up to a host of networking opportunities, job opportunities, and just connecting, just saying hello to fellow alumni and share your experiences and challenges that you might have. The address is there, usbalumni.com, and you can register with your LinkedIn profile. That is it from me. I look forward to the engagement further. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you very much.
I will stop sharing.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for that. I do believe that USB is doing great work in terms of the alumni program. More importantly is, of course, the work that we're doing from a social development perspective. Certainly, it's a true corporate, responsible corporate citizen. And I think also on the alumni side, it is such a great support system. I mean, I'm still in touch with, and we're still on the WhatsApp group with the class that I was with in 2017, and we support each other, and we stay connected through that. So thank you for that, USB. I think that the faculty, as well as the alumni that are in audience, are not here to listen to me and you, Christelle. They are here to listen to our director-elect, Professor Mark Smith. It's now over to you, Mark. Welcome, and this is your opportunity to share your thoughts with our audience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me okay. I've shared a few, I'm going to share a few slides with you, but not overload you too much, because I'm sure you're spending so much time on Zoom, Teams, Skype, whatever else. You're fed up with PowerPoint in this format. But I thought it'd give me a little bit of structure at least. So thanks to Christelle and to everybody in Alumni and all the work they've been doing, and to you, USB Alumni, which makes a school and helps us promote our reputation and our impact work. Also, thanks to Becky for hosting me and leading me through this session. So what I thought I'd do, since you all know the school so well, Christelle and Becky encouraged me to sort of introduce myself a little bit more, so you got to know me, but then through that you get to know a little bit about what I think, what I want to do at USB, and and some of the thoughts we've had as in terms of thinking for the way forward for the school. So it's a bit of a sort of biographical pathway, but hopefully it's we'll share where I'm from and where I'm going to, and it's a similar message that I share with my new colleagues internally for the same reasons, so they know who I am and I know who they are. So let's see if I can just get this to fly. There we go. Okay, so first I thought, well, why are they I bet we're probably wondering, why are they calling him director-elect? Is he not a real director? Well, I thought it's best to just explain that straight up front, in that I'm currently in France, as Christelle pointed out, because I don't yet have a visa, so I'm in a sort of a limbo position between my old job and this job. So I'm working as director-elect for Stellenbosch, but they can't actually nominate me formally as director. So that's why we've been using this title, director-elect. And you probably cannot read the small picture in the top right there of the globe, but that's the warning on the Paris consulate website that I look at every day, just to check what's going on and when the consulate will open. And this morning must be good news, good luck, thanks to meeting you alumni today. The sign changed, and you are now able to ask for an appointment for a visa. So that's the first time in 7 months, maybe, that is like that. So if everybody crosses their fingers, I'm crossing my fingers, toes, everything. That means I should get an appointment relatively soon, and I can really move forward to moving to South Africa and dropping the elect and becoming completely director. But even within, though I'm stuck in France, and like the rest of you, we're all stranded and delocalized from where our normal workplaces. I'm constrained geographically, but I'm connected to my new colleagues. I've been working closely with them for the last two months formally, but before that I started working with Pit Norday since May time. We were in terms of the handover, and he's a fantastic director for the school for the last 6 years, and leaves the school in a fantastic place, in a solid position for the future, and a really wonderful human being to share his experiences and to help me integrate into the school. So that's been a really smooth transition. And so through that, I've become increasingly into the school. So that explains the director-elect. So where did it all start? Well, I was born in Oxford, and you think, wow, so that's very impressive. But actually, Oxford is a town of two sides. If you, and the side on the left there is a side you probably know if you watch Inspector Morse or one of those TV programs where there's Oxford Dons wandering around. But there's actually two sides to Oxford. There's this academic side, but there's also the normal town, we say. And my family came from the normal town. My father came from was a worker in the factory that made Morris cars, then Leyland cars, then Rover cars, then BMW cars, and it still has a long history of making cars. And so my background comes from not from an academic background, more from a family background that's more of worker organizations. And I think that one of the things that drives me, I'm particularly interested in the way people work, how you organize people, the quality of their working lives, how you make them high performing, but also give them sustainable careers throughout their lifetimes. And for all the jobs I've had, I always had that interest. Even when I was pretending I didn't want to be an academic, I was still interested in that side of things. And when we talk about working conditions, we often talk about cars because everybody knows about cars, and it's a great way to explain that. But also, one of those archetypal ways to capture the Taylorist production where work was de-skilled and then increasingly skilled, and then the impact of robots, etc. So it's very talismanic in that sense. So that's where it all started. But as soon as I was old enough to leave home and go to university, I didn't hang around in Oxford. I went to Manchester. And I started off my university career at UMIST, which is a technology university, and I did a degree in economics, in sociology and psychology, science, social sciences. And that's the picture there on the left. And that was a school university that was built to support the Industrial Revolution, and based on the Manchester being the heart of the Industrial Revolution, and strongly anchored in engagement with industry, engagement with organizations, and a very strong sense of practical impact on stakeholders. And that, I think that was important in shaping the person I am and how I see academic activity. And that's why I later found my home in a business school where you, if it goes well, you can make that bridge between academic research and rigor and actually having an impact upon organizations, individuals, societies. So that's the new look Manchester Business School there. And so between mid 90s and the early 2000s, I was in Manchester, and that's where I developed my interest in doing research on employment policies, on careers, on work-life balance, and then also on gender equality issues. And I still work with those people now, and they remain part of my sort of academic network. Becky was a bit resistant to pronounce things in French, but I've written them down here so you can all practice. You can all practice together. So les années françaises, that means the French years. I just thought that it's. I actually started off in France as a house husband. I followed my wife at the time, she's now ex, to Lyon. She worked for a drug company in pharmaceuticals as a researcher, and I looked after my kids for nearly 2 years, and we lived in Lyon, which is this beautiful city on the left, and a really fantastic city, famous for its gastronomy, its access to wine, its access to high culture. Really wonderful place to live, and in doing that, it opened my. I always had a passion for travel and a passion for internationalization. Really confirmed my passion for exploration, for learning about new cultures, learning a new language. So I learned to speak French age 35. So I was a bit of a late starter. Even though I travelled many times before in France, my French was pretty schoolboy French, we can say. Once we decided to stay in France, then I applied for jobs in business schools in the region. I actually ended up in Grenoble. And when I did my job interview to come to Stellenbosch, and when I first was thinking about preparing for that, I was thinking, wow, Grenoble has this kind of Cape Town type feel to it. We're quite far from the ocean, I admit, but we have mountains. We have a cable car in the center of the town, like we do in downtown Cape Town, and we even have a kind of donut. Where our donut is an particle accelerator. But if you sort of close your eyes and imagine a little bit, you can imagine it's a little bit like the football stadium on the seafront in Cape Town. So there's obviously good. You can see there, Grenoble is at the heart of the mountains. It's a high-tech center for nanotechnologies, for research, and it's there that I learned to continue my research and my engagement with organizations in terms of comparative research in a European context. But also I started to take on a more managerial leadership roles in higher education. So first I was the director of a doctoral school. So the doctoral school was one of the largest doctoral schools in management sciences in Europe, with about 400 doctoral students, which is extremely important, an extremely large number part-time, and we pioneered the use of DBA, Doctor of Business Administration, which is a kind of a hybrid between the PhD and a PhD of practice, if you like. And we have a lot of students who are really forging that link between business research and having an impact on their organizations that they come from. And that's one of the things I've reinforced my passion for, really making a difference. People not doing education just for education, but really making a difference. And then about 4 years ago, in 2016, I became Dean of Faculty. So the business school in Grenoble École de Management, is a standalone school, because in France all the top schools are all independent of the universities, and it has its own separate faculty. So I was in charge of around 160, 170 permanent academics. So we have around 6,000 to 8,000 students in Grenoble École de Management, and it was sort of a highly demanding job for 4 years, but was really very rewarding and confirmed my feeling to be continuing this leadership role. But also that if I create a space, or help create a space where academics can do really good work, they can have a fantastic impact upon their students in the classroom, their wider community through their research, but also through engagement with organizations, policymakers, etc. We really tried to promote that by creating a balanced profile, a balanced mix of academics that were doing high-level research, which helps with the reputation and the rigor, research that can be translated quite quickly into impacted organizations, and also what the French call vulgarization, but you sort of which sounds horrible in English, but means translating things and communicating to a wider public, which is really important, because if business schools and academics remain in their ivory towers, we increasingly isolated from wider society. And I think that's particularly challenging and particularly important challenge to face up to in the current climate. So I'm actually in Lyon today, but I'm still in France, but soon to be in Stellenbosch. So when I came to Stellenbosch in February for my interview, I came because I was what I knew and what I then cemented my knowledge about Stellenbosch. The reputation of Stellenbosch is very strong outside South Africa, and sometimes you don't realize that. I don't think you don't realize quite how well known Stellenbosch is as a business school outside South Africa and outside the African continent. When I talk to my peers and I say, well, I'm going there, the first comment is normally, wow, that's fantastic. It's a great school, they have a great reputation, they're a wonderful partner. There's a huge reputation of USB, and it's really really important to we can leverage that in terms of international networks, but also in terms of having an impact on wider society and that social impact that Becky mentioned earlier. Stellenbosch USB is also well known for its positioning. It's now it's fairly common for schools to say we identify with sustainable development goals, we are an ethical business school, but it's something that USB was a leader in, thanks to Pitt, thanks to other people in the school doing work in that area. The Stellenbosch is the go-to school for that in Africa. I was at a conference recently, and it was speakers from USB that were there talking about ethics and responsibility. It demonstrates that again, that impact that business schools should be having. Since working alongside people from Stellenbosch, I realized what fantastic people exist inside the school, and there's a real culture of can-do that's come to the fore this year in terms of COVID, but also even before that. USB is equipped to a level of technology and a human capability to work with that technology, which is way in advance of many of the things I see in Europe, more advanced in the school that I come from, for example. So there's something to be really proud of there, and something that gives a really solid foundation for the future of USB. These are some of the areas where I think it's so that I think, but I also think USB is doing a really great job right now. Notion of having an impact, and sometimes we talk about impact. We might talk about doing maybe that's impact through research or impact through companies, but also one of our primary impacts is through giving the capabilities, the competencies, and the entry ticket for our graduates and our alumni to go on and to get great jobs, and through that for social mobility, for improving the way things are done in their organization, in their society, on their continent, in the world. I think in doing that, USB positions itself as an African and a global school. One of my jobs, I think, and one of my jobs of our colleagues, is that we cement the position of USB on the African continent, but we also look beyond that. And I think that's why I would imagine that might be one of the reasons they chose somebody from overseas. I think that's one of the things I bring, the connectedness to international networks. And I want to really promote that integration of USB as that go-to school in the African continent. That picture in the middle is a big conference I went to in 2019, was started the Responsible Research Conference. And there were a lot of big schools from North America, from Europe, from China, from Australia, but there was nobody from Africa. There were no schools represented from Africa. And I think that's a great loss for management research and management education at a global level. But it's important that I think that USB can step up to that. I have a very strong commitment to inclusivity. That inclusivity, when I'm talking to colleagues in the organization, in USB, is about including faculty and including support staff in terms of thinking of it as a team who produce and provide a service to you as alumni, to students, to our stakeholders. The COVID pandemic has demonstrated how it's not just academics, it's also that those technical skills, the whole package that people experience in a business school become increasingly important. It's important also that USB is a leader in sustainability. The sustainability in all its forms. That's sustainable societies, sustainability in terms of climate change, sustainability in terms of careers. How do we provide individuals with the skills and the tools to maintain and sustain a lifelong career when careers are changing so fast? In terms of climate change, the University of Stellenbosch is establishing a School of Climate, which will be transversal inside the university, and I hope that we can reach out to them in order to develop joint projects so we can bring the management business expertise that the school brings. Similarly, in terms of data analytics, there's also partnerships to explore in that in terms of our position in digital. This bottom right corner is me with some of my colleagues from my previous job, and I dearly want to take the same picture with my new colleagues from USB. I think the school, any school, but particularly USB, is a school of all the people inside, the colleagues, the faculty, the support staff, the students, the alumni, and having that sense of community is something that I'm passionate about, and I will drive forward. I think this is my penultimate slide. Just to say, I just wanted to say what I'm thinking of doing right now. Number one on my list is to get a visa, obviously, and get to South Africa. But we've already started work on a number of different areas, and it's important to stress those because some of those things include you. So the first thing is we're going to undertake a midterm strategy review. I'm pretty sure some of you were consulted in the first strategy review, the last strategy review, which is in 2018-19, and that strategy was supposed to run 2019 to 2021-22. Now, I think we can be fairly say that 2020 was a kind of atypical year, and it's time to review what was done and perhaps shift forward the time frame a little bit, but also adapt it for the new conditions. Just as an example, the extent to which we need to think about a sort of physical infrastructure compared to virtual infrastructure. We spend more of our time now in this space rather than actually in offices and in schools. So what does that mean for the experience of our students, for the type of investments we want to make in the future? I'm passionate about exploiting those networks. Christelle gave a fantastic rundown of all the different activities you've been doing, and I know last week we've just started these new dinners where people can start to get together to build and reinforce networks, but also so we can then start to use those. I'm delighted to see we have chapters in Canada and in Europe. I think there is where we can start to push as well as further development and reinforcement inside Africa. One of the new realities of the post-COVID environment is all these online MBAs and online diplomas mean that there'll be new competition from in South Africa from perhaps players who are not in South Africa. But that also means that USB can exploit that global reputation I was talking about to provide perhaps a global MBA, work with partners around the world that are interested in global MBA, global diplomas that bring expertise from Africa, from Europe, from North America, etc. I think the way we can achieve that is to use our internal and external stakeholders to reinforce our networks, but also to deepen our partnerships for those types of projects. I think one of my jobs as director, but I also think in the 21st century, it's the responsibility of everybody, is that we push the reputation of USB. That's my faculty talking about their projects, their research, their teaching, their knowledge sharing in different environments, in the press and in social media, in accessible books as well, books and media, as well as in journal articles. But also that we use people and say, well, like as Christelle pointed out at the start, to recommend coming to USB, or USB can perhaps provide support for dedicated research projects, because we have research centers that are with particular expertise, or because there's expertise in terms of specific research projects that can be shared, or as a link into our activities with USB Ed, sorry. So I see that sort of reputation building as all of our responsibilities, and something that benefits all of us. Because if we work in a better school that has this better reputation, that brings more people, that brings more impact, and likewise for alumni. You're bringing great new students to the school, you're open access for projects or for partnerships, and that also reinforces the reputation of the school. And I think there is where a business school needs to identify new opportunities, new services that may exist. I think this thinking itself as a kind of convener of an ecosystem is important in order to have the a new level of impact. I'm reluctant to define a kind of a vision for the school at this stage, because I really think that strategy is something that, and a vision is something that comes and is owned by the members of the school. So we'll do that together, internal and external stakeholders in the first 2020. I really think, just from my feeling before I came and everything I've seen, but while I've been integrating into the school, is that the USB is a leading African school with a global reputation, without question. But also the possibility for it to be a leading African school for new forms of learning and impact, leading the way in technology, leading the way in new forms of social impact. Closer to home, I've been in quite a lot of meetings with this university, as well as you can imagine. I think the USB is also a pioneer for the University of Stellenbosch, a pioneer for new forms of technology and new blended pedagogy. When the COVID crisis happened this year, the university turned to people in USB and said, well, what have you been doing? How can we help share that knowledge and that experience? And I think that is a great sign that the business school is a leader for the university in promoting these new forms of technology and pedagogy. But also, one of the things that's close to my heart is that in terms of promoting inclusion and diversity in terms of the workforce and the student population. I think we wouldn't deny that Stellenbosch has a history that has been challenging in relation to its diversity inclusion in modern South Africa. And I think by pushing forward that agenda inside the business school, with our recruitments, with our students, with our discourse, with our research centres, I think we can really show the way. Transforming school and transforming society, I think is extremely exciting opportunity. And then just come back to the idea of ecosystem. I think see the business school as at the heart of its ecosystem, a place where people come, virtually or in a physical sense, to talk about new projects, to take opportunities for long courses, long programs, or micro learning experiences, engagement with USB Ed partners, and a driver for that ecosystem that helps its ecosystem move forward in terms of, but also in terms of inclusion and responsibility. And I think that way, the business school demonstrates why we have to have a business school and why it's a real key player for the University of Stellenbosch, for its stakeholders, but also for the Western Cape in Africa. I want to finish on this picture, which looks a bit strange because this comes from Beaujolais. Now, Beaujolais is just a bit north of Lyon. It's a wine-grown area. Not the best wine, even the French would admit that, but it's a wine-grown area. This bridge was built in maybe 150 odd years ago, okay? And it was a bridge for a train, and they used to use it to get the textiles out of this very hilly area in the south of Beaujolais. And it was a triumph of technology at the time to get the materials out of this area, because before they used to have to use horses and carts and people carrying stuff, and this train track weaves its way across the landscape, finds a path through extremely complex terrain, or certainly complex 200 years ago, in order to get the materials out of the area. Because as you know, a train can't go up a steep hill, a train can only go up very, very gentle hills. Nowadays we have cars, these train tracks have become derelict, but they've repurposed it as a green highway, and it's something that brings tourism to the area, something that promotes ecological transport, and something that demonstrates man's ingenuity over his environment, our capacity to adapt and to see new ways of using old tools, but also to see new opportunities. And I think that when I took this photo, like the photo itself, it's a way to think of how we go forward together. Thanks a lot. Is that okay, Becky?
That's fabulous. Thanks very much for that, Mark. Quite comprehensive. I think it's quite exciting looking at the next steps. And of course, the first one is we need to get you here as fast as we can. So hopefully COVID and the regulations will ease up and we'll see you soon. But I think also I just picked up a couple of items in what you had in the next step. The idea of leveraging of the networks that the business school has, as well as digital technology, to extend the reach, but also to blend the programs, bringing local and international, which will certainly benefit students and some of our alumni that still want to further their studies. And of course, the one that is, I do believe, close to many in the audiences, the inclusion and diversity, and not only just from a racial or gender perspective, but it actually goes beyond that. So it will be exciting to see what you are bringing to the school. So at the moment, we've got a few questions that have come through, and I would encourage the faculty and the alumni on the call to please post them. I'll go with the first one. This question is from Adam Nkambule. And the question mark is, what are Mark's thoughts on the evolution of business school to become more digital? How can this be leveraged to increase access to lower cost for current and future students? And I suppose it's really about, with digital, to what extent could we also support those that may not be able to currently access education? And so yes, if you could just share your thoughts on that.
Okay, thanks, Adam. I think there's certainly a fantastic opportunity with digital to open up access and to new markets and people who are perhaps unable to travel. I know personally myself, I've been participating in conferences in the United States and in other parts of Europe without travel, and so there's this sense of access is very liberating in a digital sense. But I do think it's important that schools don't just say that digital is a kind of solution to do mass education without levels of engagement, without proper pedagogic development and sound pedagogy behind that. And I think that's where USB is well placed, because they've been leading the way in blended classes and blended teaching, on the development finance, on the PG dipping coaching, those those programs have for a long time had a blended component that other schools didn't necessarily have. So they already had that capacity inside the school to think about how people might access teaching at a distance or classes at a distance, and in order to make it a real experience. In terms of access, I think there's advantages and there's certain tensions or certain challenges. I'd say in terms of access, we can reach beyond geographical boundaries. We can reach people can save time and resources in terms of travel, and we can also perhaps provide formats that allow people with lower technologies or lower access to data bandwidth, etc., that can get around that. I think it's important that there's USB doesn't position itself as a completely online school. There are other already online schools and online offerings, at one extreme Coursera or something like that, but also other business schools that are doing a completely online offer. And that the value of USB, the partnerships and the friendships and the bonds that you have with your alumni have come frequently because you were in the same classroom together, because you had dinner get together, because you did a project together, and maybe some of that was online, but some of that was actually in the same place. And I think it's important to try and give that USB experience in a digital format, and without losing the sense that we're a school and a community, and the bonds that we make are what make the alumni network strong. And that's the value added of coming to a real school rather than doing a MOOC or an online course. How to promote that? We've been talking very briefly inside the school about different ways in which we could offer some of the courses some of the modules that we have now in terms of micro learning, in terms of breaking them down so they're small parts of the small programs, so that people can start programs in small ways. The other thing we were talking about also is that people could do some courses for free, but then they would once they were happy, then they would pay a small fee to do an exam, and that would give them the credits to come and join the program. So there's a real spirit inside USB to think of new ways to give access to students to materials and to the richness of the expertise inside USB, but also to give them the foothold so they can actually make that into a real qualification and a diploma, so that they have all the benefits that come with the reputation of a qualification from USB.
Thank you for that, Mark. Yeah, there was an article that asked the question about the future of higher education post-COVID with digital. So I suppose those are some of the creative ways of coming up with solutions to answer that question.
For sure.
So we've got another question from Caroline Dale, who I know quite well because she was in the same class as I. Hi, Caroline. Her question is, hi, Prof. Understanding the challenges of postgrads to navigate their thesis or research assignment, having completed their academics, what are your thoughts on improving the graduation stats for USB and so build on their reputation? So it's really about the throughput. How do we improve that?
Sure. Thanks, Caroline. Well, one of my previous jobs was when I was in Grenoble, was to be in charge of the doctoral school, and I think with doctoral school you have or doctoral or any postgraduate thesis, you have the wonderful opportunity. You have students who are passionate about their subject. They've chosen their research project or the thesis that they're working on. So as somebody who works in the sector, you go, this is the best, because these people are excited about their topic and they really want to push it forward, and they don't need so much motivation to actually move things forward. The downside or the risk side, in a sense, is because those people are generally a little bit older, they come with a lot of other things that are going on in their lives: kids, jobs, cars, houses, husbands, wives, etc., that can make things a little bit more complicated. So one of the things we tried to do when I was in Grenoble is in relation to throughputs, because throughputs is a challenge for many many business schools, or many schools in terms of postgrad, and I think it's important to kind of a balance of pressure and love, or TLC, tender loving care. So on the so on the tender loving care side of things, we tried to put in place enhanced levels of training for research methodology, so that people don't rely completely on their supervisor for that, but there's a higher level of training for research methodology, so the students are better equipped to do their own research projects, to do their data collection, their analysis, etc., with refreshers, and so that former students or students that are in the previous cohort can come back and join in on modules if they need a refresher on particular methodologies. Secondly, which sometimes overlooked, is kind of extra training on how to write, because it's often writing that becomes the biggest challenge, and giving people advice on and support on writing, but also on time management and making the space to write. To be completely honest, many academics also have a big problem in trying to write, even though it's a part of their job. They struggle to find the time. They're often pulled in different ways. So all of us can benefit from trying to make a bit of clear space where we can work in the way that suits us, in terms of producing and writing and delivering for deadlines. So we had a team of people doing the training, and then we did the training ourselves because it was a thing we wanted to do, we get better at, and then we also diffuse that to other people. So we sort of provide that level of support, and then we also the third thing was to kind of regular follow-ups with the students, so the students had to, so people don't get left behind, because one thing, the problem with research programs is if the gap comes too far from where you want to be and where you are, then it's harder and harder to catch up. So trying to keep people moving along through the system, and that was where we sort of had a little bit of pressure, but say, well, you need to give us something to read each month or each period, so that the project keeps moving along. Because a lot of self-motivation is postgraduate research and postgraduate qualifications, and people can benefit from that little bit of support or encouragement, which we have as well. I have from my co-authors. If I write a book, I write it with somebody else, and they're saying, "Hey, Mark, where's your chapter? Because you owed us that." So there's this kind of mutual pressure among colleagues that can help as well. So a bit of change, sort of enhancing the system, so we give people the right skills to advance, and a bit of encouragement to make sure that people deliver regularly, and then you break down the task into small chunks rather than just a big thesis at the end of the program.
Great, thanks very much for that. I know that Carol is a thesis coach, so she's speaking from experience, having dealt with. All right, we've got another comment and a suggestion, and it will be interesting to hear what your thoughts are on this, Prof. It says here, it's from Martha Telios. You've spoken to ethics, hopefully practical ethics, leadership, business, and political, and social, etc. This can become a standalone postgraduate qualification, just putting it out there. And I'm saying it's interesting, Prof, and we'll be interested to hear your thoughts, because one of the big challenges at the moment with the digital age is ethics around digital technologies and how they are being abused or intrusive, etc. Mm-hmm. So we'll be keen to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Thanks, Martha, and thanks, Becky. I think that's a really timely question, because this morning I had a meeting with the new head of it's called the School of Data Analytics, but it's a kind of transversal school at Stellenbosch University, and they don't have their own students, and they're set up to work with individual departments inside the university. So we have another meeting next week with profs that you probably know from USB, and the head of the Data Analytics Center, in order to identify projects for us to work on. And one of the projects that he identified, and it would have been close to my heart as well, was the ethics of digital and algorithms and all these decisions that are being made by machine learning, and some by AI, but not so many right now, but some more and more in the future, being made, that apparently seem to be objective, but they're not at all objective. They actually have a human being behind that wrote the algorithm, that designed the software, and there are ethical questions that those people need to be aware of, and we recognize what they what the impact of those things are. And us as users, it's important that we're aware of ethical considerations and the ethical shortcomings of different different digital formats. So that sort of links into your to Martha's point about having this this ethics, a practical sense of ethics, but also does it become a standalone activity, or does it? So you have an ethical postgrad diploma, for example, or does it something that touches everything? I'm personally, I think that ethics, if we want to say we're promoting responsible leadership and ethical governance at the USB, then we should try to integrate that into all of our diplomas, into our PG Dips, into our MPhils, into our PhDs, so that if you recruit as an alumni, if you recruit a fellow alumni, you know that person comes with a certain grounding in ethical thinking, in critical thought, in just an awareness of the decision, the consequences of their decision, and the ethical issues that might arise. I think if we isolate ethics to a small section of a program, or just to a standalone program, you'll get a lot of passionate ethicists that come along, but then we don't touch the wider community. And I think that might be a bit of a loss. But you might miss out on some of the very passionate people, but I think our job is to shape and inform a wider number of managers and future leaders, so that then we can say, well, there's these ethical, responsible leaders that have graduated from USB, and they bring a certain level of ethical thinking. We have the same problem when we talk about gender equality. So I can do a class on gender equality, and I can have a class full of women, 20 women who are completely passionate about the subject. It's fantastic. We just talk about all the great things we love to do, etc. And it's like the priest talking to the converted. Okay, I'm going to have an impact on 20 people, but it's not going to change the world. If you integrate equality into lots of different programs, then you touch all students, and everybody comes. They sort of have that little awakening, a little bit. So one of the things I did in my last school, we had a project called Women at GEM. So GEM was like the acronym for the business school, and women with a capital W, and importantly a capital M, because equality is men as well as women. And what we did was we tried to promote what we call mainstreaming of gender equality issues inside, or awareness inside lots of different programs. So I had a German teacher, because in my school we taught, my old school they taught languages. German teacher that did debates about equality in German. So the students were learning German, but officially, but the actual subject they were debating was gender equality in France compared to Germany. So they raises their awareness. I had another teacher, who was working on statistics, and he taught how to manipulate statistics, how to run programs, software, etc., but using the gap between the data on the gap between female and male salaries. So you mainstream these questions, and then everybody becomes aware of it. And then there's a kind of a sort of sensible an awareness raising among a wider group of people. And I think the same can go for ethics in that context.
Okay, thanks very much. It sounds like it's more across as opposed to just focus, and that's where the benefit would be. We've got another question, Mark, and this one is from Julian Wormser. I hope I've pronounced the surname correctly. She says, hi, Mark. To construct a future together, what will you do for all alumni located abroad? Stellenbosch University schedules many events thanks to Alison April, but we don't have so many contacts from USB. In France, we feel we are far from USB. So it sounds like there is a need to still, whether it's virtually or in person, to make people feel at home. So what are your thoughts there, Mark?
Okay, thanks, Becky, and thanks, Julian. It sounds like Julian is in France, so it's we're not so far away. It's a good question, Julian. And last week, Christelle and I and the rest of the alumni team had had a meeting about how we can, and maybe we should ask Christelle to answer this really, but we were talking about how we could use the University of Stellenbosch structures to benefit for USB alumni around the world. So we can use their scale and their structures in order to reach our USB alumni. Now our alumni are going to be perhaps slightly different profiles, because there'll be some of those will be former bachelor students, etc. But then also there will also be people with similar profiles, and the USB alumni would like to share and make contact with. But we can use that as a kind of piggyback, if you like, to benefit our alumni. In relation particularly to Europe, I think there's room for us to strengthen those ties in Europe, and either through events or through a dedicated chapter to try to sort of consolidate alumni in different countries. We were talking about last week about which countries are we strong in where we have chapters, and which countries are we nearly strong in or not, or could be stronger where we don't have chapters, and we can reinforce those. And I think that will be a place where we can reinforce to make people feel more closer to home, as you said, if you're in France, but also we can then reach out and recruit new students from those communities. So we have a critical mass of people in those areas, so we can organize events that both are for USB and for Stellenbosch and for our alumni and for our new potential students. I think there's definite work to do there, and I think we'll be Christelle and I will be reaching out to you if you're in a country where we're less well representative, for your ideas, but also to help us make those inroads.
It's an interesting challenge, because with the mobile workforce, we will certainly have to look at how we address that. I've got one more question from Gillian Moodley, and she says, thanks, Prof, and welcome. What are your plans for contributing to gender equality at the faculty and at the student body level? It sounds like it's somebody who's part of the faculty here.
Okay, thanks, Gillian. That's a question that's I'm passionate about, and passionate because I suppose one of my core values. Passionate because some of the research I've been working on, and I'm currently working with the European Commission. I'm doing a presentation with the European Commission at the end of this week, because we're talking about new levels of transparency regulations inside Europe to make men and women more aware of how much each person's paid, so you can negotiate better salaries, and so the big gaps are highlighted. And I know that Anita Bosch at USB has been writing about this as well, so there's relevance for South Africa, and I'm really looking forward to working with Anita on this kind of topic. In terms of what we do what I'd like to do for faculty and students, I'm conscious not to be the new boss that just brings everything from his old job and tries to redo things. But one thing that we did in Grenoble is that we had these kind of focus groups, if you like, of male and female faculty, male and female students, male and female alumni, etc., where we said, well, what's going on, and what are the, and it was prompted by a particular incident, but what's going wrong and what's going right in terms of this environment as a safe place for men and women to work, as a place where people want to come and work, and that is recognized as a inclusive, dynamic workplace for all groups, men, women, straight, gay, different races, etc. And what we realized was there were different populations, different stakeholders. So you have your students, you have your teachers, you have your researchers, you have your alumni. And so we put together this project, the Women at GEM project, where we tried to have advance on different fronts in parallel with different people's responsibilities. So we tried to decentralize so we could move more quickly. but also so that the solutions were, rather than being imposed, they were they came from the ground up with particular support. I think that's important because so it's not being imposed in terms of cultural norms. I come with my own views around my own perspectives, if you like, as a British person, but they've been adapted through being in France, but they're not, they need to be sensitive to South African context as well. So I think it's important that there's both an ownership because in the faculty level and the student level, so that move those things forward together, but also so it's not something that's imposed from above. Things I'd like to try. So that's not me copying out to say I'm not going to say anything, but I think it's important that we share those solutions. But one thing I'd like to try, we did quite simple things. We put in some things that were more challenging. So at a simple level, we just looked at our processes and said, are these fair for men and women who go on paternity leave or maternity leave? If you have objectives that are set over 4 or 5 years as a researcher or as a member of faculty, then we just pro-raterized those if you were on maternity leave. It was pretty straightforward. It took us about 10 minutes to organize, and we just pushed it through with different committees and it was done. So that's kind of straightforward. At the other extreme, putting things in place like we put in a harassment hotline for sexual harassment among students, because unlike at USB, there's a kind of a group of younger students who go to a lot of parties and are more and more in more situations where there's potential risks. There's then they organised a hotline that so students could report problems, and then we deal with them, and we just signaled that we would deal them with in a fair way, but also in terms of zero tolerance. And quite quickly, the culture of the school, because students are always turning over, the new students come in and they just hear that GEM is Grenoble Culture Management was a place for zero tolerance for harassment and respect for men and women and for people from different backgrounds. And quite quickly, those changes are put in place. Other easy things for faculty was we encourage people to integrate equality issues into their teaching without telling them what to teach. But say, well, have you thought about playing with the gender dimension when you teach marketing, when you teach strategy, when you teach leadership? And so these are not just promoting equality for equality's sake. These are important skills for managers going out into the world today, because they will be faced with diverse workforces. And one of the things I really believe South Africa is a fantastic place to learn these things is because you're a world leader in diversity. So many different languages and cultures all wrapped up together. Then it should be a beacon for other countries, but also a place that people want to come to learn about how to manage diversity and get high-performing teams that work in diverse environments, etc. I think that's something that really excites me. This, just to let you into a secret, I'm teaching tomorrow in Grenoble because of for my short-time contract I still have in France, and I'm actually doing a diversity case study on South Africa. So I'm bringing South Africa to France tomorrow. So
nice. Good to hear, and we look forward to your learnings when you join us. One more question from Wendy McCallum, and this one says, a warm virtual African welcome to Mark. Mark referred to the value proposition of USB to society. What about the value proposition of the USB to students? What are Mark's thoughts in humanizing blended pedagogy and administrative excellence that enables academic success?
Thanks, Wendy. I think that's that side. The value proposition to students is essential. I think there's a sense that a business school speaks to wider society, but speaks to wider society through its students. And that's students, the graduates, the alumni that go on to change people's lives because they're responsible managers, because they create businesses, because they create employment, because they create wealth in their own country or in their own society. But I think during that learning process, it's essential that the service to students in a business school is of an extremely high standard. and high standard in terms of the pedagogy, and high standard, so you say they're right, you say they're rightly the administrative excellence. I'm conscious. I'm conscious that I've been meeting different administrative staff this week, and we've been talking about how to improve our experience about the experience of our students, how they go through our different administrative processes, how they're integrated into the school and learn. Just as much as I've been talking to faculty about how we make a pedagogic experience which is rich online, when in this period where we're missing out on the on being in the same place. In terms of the so I'm open to feedback. So if you want to send me something or send something to Christella, that get to me, that'll be extremely welcome. But we were talking for example just this earlier this week, so well, there's certain blockages in terms of students coming through in terms of the different paperwork, and because of the people are held up in the administrative processes of the state or of the SACWA, etc., and how they can get around that, and how we can be more flexible on our side. So I think it's up to us to find solutions that, because you were all busy, you were busy when you joined the USB, and you're probably even busier now, and just as our new students, and it's important we create a space where those processes work as smoothly as possible. I saw some really fantastic feedback on it was this really touched me actually. I met a new admissions colleague who'd only joined the school on the 1st of August, so he's never actually been, I think he's been to the school once physically, and he had a meeting with me, but he said I can only stay for 5 minutes because he has to go back and answer phone calls, and there are new recruits that are waiting to hear from him because he wants to help them finish their forms before the deadline, etc. And so he already had, in a short period of time, and joining USB in a very atypical context, he had this passion for doing a great job for the students and the prospects that were coming in, and that made me feel really good. But also how we and then I later saw some feedback about that service where a student who signed up and said it was really great service that they experienced in terms of helping the people through the door. And I think we need to follow that through. In terms of pedagogy, second part of your question, I think that's a challenge for all schools. I think USB is not quite uniquely placed, but really well placed because it was a leader in that online blended pedagogy before other schools. And I would say, thanks to people like Martin Butler and other colleagues inside the school, there's a real passion for innovating pedagogy and looking for Jacques Vauchank, people who are really passionate about their pedagogy and really want their students to have a wonderful experience in the online environment. And they've set up regular sharing of best practice. And that's something we'll continue into 2021, where we talk about the best ways to teach, how to get your students to engage when they're online, because everybody's tired of this space, and we need to think of new ways that make it more human, as you say, and also engaging and inspiring, while also it's not so intense, because it is intense.
Thank you, Mark, for that comprehensive response. Hopefully it was adequate response to our was it Wendy? Yes, Wendy. We've got a question from Yusuf, and it's probably going to be the last question. We'll see how far we go. And the question is, it's Yusuf Sayed. Academic theories, models, research methodologies, etc., are one aspect. The reality in the business environment also requires application, which industry experts provide. How do you propose infusing the offering in USB to create a pragmatic approach to learning, and also infusing the world of academia to enhance the learning experience? I guess it's that balance between corporate and academia to bring value to the learning. Your thoughts?
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks, Yusuf. I think you might be talking yourself into a job, because that's one of the things that when I talk about making the most of our networks and strengthening those bonds with our stakeholders, is about integrating and using our alumni to participate in the in our academic programs. I think bring a passion for the school, which is contagious for students. And when people come back, and I experienced this also in my previous job, when people come back to share what they've been doing and how they and their particular sector specific knowledge, then it's rewarding for them as individuals, but it's also really fantastic for the students because they see heroes, if you like, heroes with a small h, people who are graduates have gone on to do great jobs and find interesting interesting roles, but also they see the sense of pride and access to privileged knowledge and privileged experience, how things are happening today in a particular sector. I know that Christelle gets requests like that. I've seen those requests come across my desk as well. I forwarded one on Monday morning to the head of the MBA, who's somebody who's an expert in health, who could help us out as an external speaker on our MBA in health specialization. So that access to those expertise is essential, because otherwise we just become a school that's too far from the day-to-day experiences of working lives, or of how things are being implemented, or how things are changing in organizations. I'm conscious sometimes students request, oh, they just want to hear from people in the in practice environments, or doing practice. But I firmly believe that what people come for when they come to a top-end school like USB, you learn how to think. You learn how to think in a new way. If we just taught you the modern practices for e-recruitment, or for lean management, or for strategic thinking as of the 1st of December 2020, that information starts to go out of date quite quickly. You'll be to the point right now, but then if you actually have that mix of critical thinking, of analytical skills, of theories that allow you to conceptualize what's really happening here, then you can analyze new situations that we have not yet thought of. And I think that's that mix, and it's important that we have that mix. And Christelle and I and Yaku and the other program directors will be coming back to you to get you to come. And we already have lots of people to come and do that for us, and participated last week in the Lion's Den and the Research Meets Industry, and that's the sort of events where I think we get the richness of both those things. I'll just give you a very small example. I'm currently doing some research I'm just finishing some research about Uber, and Uber is like new. It's so new. It's never been anything before. But actually, when we analyze it from a more conceptual perspective, it's not so new, because what's happened is it's a computer and it's a platform that's fragmenting and managing people's work. But the actual precarious nature of the work, the deconstruction of work into piecemeal tasks, is not so different to normal forms of subcontracting that you might do in a strategy class, or forms of temporary work or agency work that you might have done in a human resource class, or a management class, or even think when we go back further in time, when we talk about part-time and temporary work that people were talking about and researching and concerned about in the 1980s and 1990s. So it is new, but it is also old, and it's having that mix of the conceptual depth that you get from coming to a rigorous academic institution with today's application through academics who are doing research right now, but also external speakers like yourselves, is what I think is the value added from a business school. So that's a long answer, but this Uber thing is one of my pet subjects at the moment. Sorry.
No, it's great. It's good to hear that there is room for that, because I suppose at the end of the day, learning has to be relevant and applicable. So glad to hear that you are already exploring that. I do believe that we no longer have any questions. There are lots and lots of messages of gratitude and thanks. Mark, I'm sure you'll find some time to just go through them in your responses. So it sounds like you've been able to answer the questions as expected. So well done on that. We are about to close, so there's just something that I wanted to share with the audience, Christelle, which about Mark, which some may or may not have seen, but I just felt that it's important to share that. So I was just doing a bit of research and I came across this article about you, Mark, and you'll probably recognize who it comes from. I'll give the name afterwards, and it says, Mark never stopped expecting the best from me and kept the gentle pressure up, sometimes to the point of irritation. Working with him was never about arriving and resting on my laurels. It was more about maintaining the learning curve and making new things happen. He knew I had to juggle my private life with my professional life, and had studied women's experience like mine for years. He wanted me to win, but never told me to get comfortable, as he knows that I probably never would be. He did not choose the easy path for himself, so why would he choose it for those he chooses to mentor? This is my story of the unexpected advocate in my corner. I had been looking for him in all the wrong places, and that came from Dr. Michelle Miley. So I thought I would share this because there's a message I would like to believe for the faculty, because I do believe that from Mark, you are getting an inspirational leader who is a mentor and wants his team members to win. And winning individuals working together means a winning team. And then to the students, I believe that we are going to be getting programs with a fresh perspective that are relevant and bring a global element to it. And then to the alumni and Africa society at large, we are getting an advocate who can support in our fight to address some of the challenges we are grappling with, such as youth employment, gender equality, and of course, business ethics, which we can do in partnership with the private and public sector. And to you, Director-elect, I believe that you will be getting awesome time filled with exciting, diverse culture and adventure, both personally and professionally in South Africa and Africa. So with that, I just thought it was the parting remark that I wanted to share with the audience who may have not heard, but who are still figuring out what are we getting from the new director-elect. So I hope that that will answer some of the questions, as well as what you've shared with us over the last 1.5 hours. Christelle, anything on your side? Mark, I don't know whether you've got any parting remarks before we close.
Looking at it, I feel like I'm blushing a bit because I remember now Michelle Mealy wrote that, but it's that was very nice of her to write that. Just to say, it's such a privilege to have been nominated as director. I felt enormously lucky and privileged when I was nominated, and everything experienced since then, through meeting internal colleagues, through meeting students, through being at the Lion's Den last week, through meeting you today, is just I'm just so excited about the future that we can construct together, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm really this is the first of many exchanges. I hope sometime in the future we'll be all in the same place. But even if we're not, and even if we have something in the same place, I think this kind of forum is really great, where we can have people from France and Belgium and Namibia and Botswana and South Africa all together at the same time, which is what USB is about, I think, and is what I've learned the USB is about. So thanks for the opportunity. Thanks to Christelle and all of her team, and thanks so much to Becky for keeping us on track.
Great. Only a pleasure. Thank you. Christelle, I do believe that you wanted to just make some announcements about